I've applied for a lot of jobs in the last 7 years, and in those 7 years, I've run into some completely ridiculous processes that human resources uses to in their application processes. And one of the most ridiculous things I have ever seen are these personality assessment tests. And I've run into these personality assessment tests at stores like Target, Michaels, Best Buy, and these personality assessment questions, when you look at who's working there, they really don't do a good job. I think about some of the questions that they ask during these personality assessment tests, and they make absolutely no sense. They ask people if they are happy. They ask people if they enjoy being in crowds. They ask people if they've stole something. Now, you would think for a retailer, asking someone if they stole something, that would be one of the most ridiculous things ever. What's somebody going to say? Are they going to say yes? No, they're not going to say yes because they want to get this job. So they're obviously going to say, no, I didn't steal anything. No, I didn't shoplift. And they ask that question repeatedly. I remember several of these personality assessment tests where they will ask the same question 3 and 4 times. And it makes absolutely no sense to me. The person who is taking this test, you would think, would have enough critical thinking skills, especially if they've gone to college, to see that same question and answer it the same way consistently. But for most people, when these personality assessment tests, they're thinking that they're going to get people with great personalities. But when we go to the workplace of your Targets, of your Best Buys, of any retailer who uses these personality assessment tests, you would think that based on what these tests are supposed to assess, you would get warm and friendly people. No, in most cases, you get angry, surly, and rude people. And you get people who are pretty much indifferent. The kind of salespeople who, when you approach them, either don't know where anything is or they scatter like a bunch of roaches when you turn the lights on. And that's usually what you get from these personality assessment tests. And you would think that this application process would be changed so that you could try to find some better people. But I believe, and I know for a fact, that in most retail, everything is usually engineered to fail. And they don't want to retain employees because they don't want to pay unemployment and they don't want to pay for medical insurance. So the job is pretty much engineered to turn over within 90 to 180 days. And these personality assessment tests, as I see it, pretty much that's what they're looking for. But that's only one part of the problem when you try to apply for jobs is that you run into these insane personality assessment tests, and these tests just eat up time when you're online in a place like a library for 45 minutes answering the same questions over and over again. Another thing that really irks me about these online applications is the amount of information they ask for. I mean, I've been on some of these applications where they're asking for social security numbers, they're asking for multiple references, and this is just a basic application to set up an interview. I would think you would want this information at the offer stage. If you're offering me a job, I'll be glad to give you social security numbers and references and all that information. But at the initial assessment stage, I believe it should just be name, address, phone number, and email. That's all you need in a resume. At that initial stage, that's all the information an employer really needs. When we start talking about after the interview and you make me an offer, then I can start giving you personal information. But to ask for personal information early on, I feel is unprofessional and unsafe during this age of hackers and people who will use your personal information for identity theft. This is what leads to security breaches. No company really needs to ask for that information so early on in an online application. An online application should just be basic, again, basic information that lets you know the person's name, the person's address, the person's email, and their resume and their qualifications. That's all an employer, I believe, needs. They don't need to know about your credit. They don't need to know about your background. They don't need to know if you've been convicted of a crime. There has been no offer made. So there's no need to ask for all that information early on in a job application. Another thing that really irks me about these application processes online are these job descriptions themselves. A lot of them are completely ridiculous. I have run into job descriptions that some of them are written in nothing but jargon. They sound like they're Mandarin Chinese and not English. And I've run into others that pretty much contradict themselves. I mean, I've read one job description where they said needs to be able to work independently, but then says you need to understand how to work with a supervisor. Complete contradiction of itself. And then some of them that say that must know Microsoft Office, and then says must know Linux. It's a contradiction. They make absolutely no sense. It's like they take no time to organize and put together a solid job description so people will know what to expect from that company. A lot of these companies don't understand when you put together a very poor job description, it reflects negatively on your company and tells people that these people who own this company aren't very serious about looking for a candidate. What they're doing when they put together these poorly put together job descriptions is saying that this organization does not take its employees seriously, and it does not take their work seriously, and it does not see the employee as a priority. Because a half-done job description, really tells the world that this company isn't a serious competitor. It tells you that these guys are just, looking for some easy resumes, or they're just putting this up here for some EEOC quota. That really prevents, really talented people like myself from even considering that organization. If I see a poorly done job description, I'm pretty much going to pass on that. And the company thinks, some of these people in the company think that, oh, that's a good thing. No, that's not a good thing, because you really need outsiders in your company in order to keep the company objective. Insiders, primarily, what they do is they prevent the company from remaining objective, and they keep people from being able to supervise objectively. So you keep outside candidates out, and it doesn't help your organization grow, and it does not help you effectively manage your organization. Um, but when I look at a lot of these job descriptions, these questionnaires, and none of it really helps a company, remain strong and competitive. These personality assessment tests, if you look at it, all they do is they prevent you from hiring good people who you could keep in the organization and help the organization grow. But as I said before, many of these companies, they just want to turn people over, not understanding that turnover event costs a lot of money, and the money that you're losing, eventually it's going to cost you in the long run. A lot of people, they're not long-term thinkers, and that's a big problem with America's, HR policies and all this on these online applications. Nobody's really thinking about how they're going to do things long term. They're not thinking about trying to find someone who will help them build something. They're just thinking about trying to find somebody to fill a spot or trying to meet some EEOC quota. And that's really sad, because I look at these job applications, I look at this application process, and it's creating what I call a bottleneck, in the job market. Because most of these jobs, the only way for you to apply for them is online. And a lot of times, if you don't have the names of the contact person, you don't have the information, and it makes it very difficult for you to try to reach people and connect with people and try to show them what you have to offer. And this whole process is really frustrating and grating, because you really have a guy like me has a lot to offer an organization, but because we can't get past the cyber gates, because a lot of these gates are pretty much, filled with these booby traps, like these crazy questionnaires, these dysfunctional job descriptions, and all these crazy application standards that make absolutely no sense, like asking for a social security number for a retail job and in the early initial application stages. So people who would have come and wanted to work for you and then would have contributed to the organization don't contribute anything, and the people who don't contribute anything and just come in and turn over, they pretty much lead to your organization being stunted in its growth. And the sad part is, I look at this application process, and nobody in HR is really taking a long, hard look at it and saying that it really needs to change, because it does need to change, because talented people are on the outside and dysfunctional people are on the inside. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.